They had everything: Oscars, sold-out shows, chart-topping hits, and million-dollar paychecks. But by their final days, some couldn't even afford a coffin. Hollywood sells us glamour, but behind the velvet curtain lies a darker truth. The industry that builds legends also knows how to forget them. In this video, we uncover how Golden Age stars ended up bankrupt, broken, and begging for help. Some lost it all to taxes, others were robbed blind. One even turned down Casablanca. These are the stories Hollywood doesn't like to revisit because they don't fit the fairy tale, but you're about to hear them. George Raft, the gambler who said no to Casablanca. George Raft wasn't just another actor. He was the gangster of Hollywood before it was a cliche. With his slick hair, icy stare, and real-life ties to the mob, he brought an edge to the screen that directors loved and audiences couldn't resist. His breakout role in Scarface, 1932, launched him into stardom, and his career rolled strong with hits like They Drive by Night and Some Like It Hot. But Raft had one fatal flaw. He couldn't see the future. He turned down roles that would define Hollywood history, Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, because he didn't think they'd be hits. Humphrey Bogart scooped them up and became immortal. Meanwhile, Raft spiraled. Lavish spending, gambling losses, and shady business deals drained his fortune. He supported friends, family, and even mob associates out of loyalty, but loyalty didn't pay the IRS. By the 1960s, he was bankrupt. He made desperate appearances, clinging to relevance. When he died in 1980, the man once feared and adored in equal measure was flat broke. His stardom long faded, his fortune long gone. But that was just the beginning. Another legend would fall even faster. Marvin Gaye, genius on the run. Marvin Gaye's voice could stop time. What's Going On wasn't just an album. It was a soul-wrenching plea wrapped in silk, still hailed as one of the greatest records ever made. But behind that velvet voice was a man crumbling under pressure. Despite raking in millions, Marvin's personal life was a financial nightmare. 2 divorces drained his earnings through brutal alimony settlements. At one point, he had to sign over royalties from an entire album, ironically titled Here My Dear, just to keep up. And then came the tax debt, nearly $600,000 owed to the IRS, forcing him into exile in Europe. To cope, Marvin turned to substances, which only deepened the spiral. By 1984, he was living back with his parents, emotionally and financially wrecked. One April morning, a family argument exploded. His father pulled a gun. 2 bullets later, Marvin Gaye was dead, one day before his 45th birthday. He left behind nothing. No estate, no savings. Just the haunting irony that a man who gave the world so much couldn't save himself. But if Marvin's end was tragic, the next story proves that even royalty, rock royalty, can lose it all faster than anyone imagined. Elvis Presley, the king who owed more than he owned. He was the king of rock and roll, the face of a generation, the man who could make a crowd scream with a single hip shake. Elvis Presley didn't just break records, he defined fame. Over his lifetime, he earned anywhere from $100 million to $1 billion. But when he died in 1977, Elvis had just $5 million in the bank and double that in unpaid taxes. How does that even happen? Years of excess, mansions, cars, private jets, and a non-stop entourage known as the Memphis Mafia devoured his fortune. Add a prescription habit that spiraled out of control and a manager who took a hefty cut, and you've got a financial catastrophe hidden behind rhinestones and jumpsuits. When Elvis died of a heart attack at 42, the IRS came knocking. His ex-wife Priscilla stepped in, turning Graceland into a tourist attraction just to keep the estate afloat. It worked. By the 90s, Elvis's name was making millions again. But even that revival had a dark twist. Their daughter Lisa Marie would later inherit it all and reportedly lose nearly everything. If the king's crown could crumble, the next downfall might sting even more, especially when it involves Disney and a child star left to die forgotten. Bobby Driscoll, Disney's golden boy, found dead and unclaimed. He was the face of innocence. Bobby Driscoll starred in Disney classics like Treasure Island and Song of the South, earning an Oscar as a child and raking in $1,750 a week before he hit puberty, a massive paycheck in the 1940s. Walt Disney once called him the perfect boy, but perfection doesn't last in Hollywood. When Bobby hit his teens, the magic faded. Acne and a deeper voice made him less marketable. Disney cut ties, roles dried up, and just like that, the industry forgot him. By 17, Bobby was experimenting with drugs. By 20, he was addicted, bouncing in and out of jail, clinging to scraps of work that never matched his former glory. He tried to get clean, tried to return to acting, but the doors stayed closed. In 1968, at just 31, Bobby was found dead in an abandoned New York tenement, surrounded by empty beer bottles, no ID, no obituary. He was buried in a pauper's grave, unidentified. No one knew the former Disney star was gone until a year later. The fall was cruel, but the next name had it all: money, cars, box office power. And still, he declared bankruptcy while smiling on magazine covers. Bert Reynolds, Hollywood's golden boy who went bankrupt with a smile. Bert Reynolds was the guy every man wanted to be and every woman wanted to know. With his signature mustache and effortless swagger, he dominated the box office in the 70s and early 80s. Smokey and the Bandit, Deliverance: The Longest Yard, each role built him into a Hollywood powerhouse. At his peak, he was the highest paid actor in the world, but the glitz came at a brutal cost. Bert lived big: sprawling mansions, a collection of exotic cars, and an expensive lifestyle fueled by bad investments and worse advice. A messy divorce from actress Lonnie Anderson in the early 90s drained his savings and kicked off a financial tailspin. By 1996, he filed for bankruptcy, revealing debts over $10 million and barely $6 million in assets. He sold his beloved Florida ranch and memorabilia just to stay afloat. Yet in interviews, he remained charming, laughing off the money troubles, even admitting, "I lost more money than most people ever make." Despite a few career comebacks, Bert never truly recovered financially. He passed in 2018, leaving behind a legacy of swagger and a cautionary tale. And while Bert fell from box office royalty, the next star fell from something even more fragile: beauty. Anita Ekberg, the beauty who died begging for help. Anita Ekberg didn't just turn heads, she froze time. Immortalized in Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita, stepping into the Trevi Fountain in a black gown, she became an instant symbol of seduction, mystery, and high glamour elegance. Hollywood adored her, so did Europe. At the height of her fame in the 50s and 60s, Ekberg lived large: designer fashion, luxury villas, champagne parties. She starred alongside legends like John Wayne and Dean Martin, commanding top-tier salaries and enjoying the world at her feet. But beauty fades, and with it, so did the calls from directors. Roles became scarce, and Ekberg's fortune vanished as fast as it was earned. A devastating house fire, medical issues, and predatory friends drained what little she had left. In her final years, she was bedridden, broke, and forced to rely on donations, applying to the Fellini Foundation just to cover her hospital bills. She died in 2015, far from the flashing cameras and red carpets. No mansion, no marble statues, just a small room in Italy and a legacy the world barely remembered. She once ruled the silver screen, but the next icon, he ruled the entire entertainment world and still died with nothing but debts and regrets. Sammy Davis Jr., Mr. Showbiz, broke at the final curtain. Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't just a performer, he was the show. A singer, dancer, actor, and comedian, Sammy dazzled crowds from Broadway to Vegas, earning the nickname Mr. Show Business. He performed with the Rat Pack, starred in Ocean's 11, and turned songs like The Candyman into global hits. At his peak, he was earning millions, but Sammy had a weakness. The spotlight wasn't enough. He craved everything that came with it: Rolls Royces, mansions, lavish parties, expensive clothes. He lived fast, spent faster, and rarely looked back. Add in a gambling habit and a string of bad investments, and his fortune began leaking like a broken faucet. Then came the tax man. Years of mismanagement led to a jaw-dropping $7 million IRS debt. By the time Sammy died in 1990 from cancer, he had nothing left. His assets were seized, his royalties funneled directly to the IRS. Even his funeral expenses became a struggle. It's the kind of ending no one expected for one of the most electric entertainers of the 20th century. But as Sammy's star dimmed, another legend's light was fading too. This one had outlasted them all, only to be betrayed by his own family. Mickey Rooney, a legend betrayed by blood. Mickey Rooney wasn't just famous, he was Hollywood history. With a career that spanned 9 decades, he starred in over 300 films, earned millions, and was once the top box office draw in America. From National Velvet to Breakfast at Tiffany's, Rooney's boyish charm and raw talent made him a household name for generations. But behind the fame was chaos. Rooney battled addiction to alcohol and prescription meds, burned through 8 marriages, and fell victim to chronic financial mismanagement. In 1962, he declared bankruptcy for the first time. The millions he once commanded? Gone. But the most gut-wrenching betrayal came later. In his 90s, Rooney testified before Congress that his own family members had financially and physically abused him, controlling his finances, isolating him, and stealing from him while he was frail and confused. When he died in 2014 at 93, he had just $18,000 to his name, barely enough to cover his funeral. For a man who had entertained the world for nearly a century, the ending was cruel beyond words. And yet the next voice, once called Lady Day, may have suffered even more, because no amount of talent could save her from a system built to chew her up. Billie Holiday, the voice that America silenced. Billie Holiday didn't just sing, she bled through music. Her voice was haunting, aching, unforgettable. Songs like Strange Fruit shook the nation, exposing the brutal realities of racism and lynching at a time when no one else dared. But behind the iconic sound was a woman scarred by trauma and trapped by a system built to destroy her. Sexually abused as a child, forced into prostitution as a teen, Billie clawed her way into music clubs where even her brilliance couldn't protect her. Exploited by managers, underpaid by record labels, and constantly targeted by authorities, she battled addiction just to cope. By the 1950s, the government made her a target, revoking her cabaret license so she couldn't perform in New York clubs. She was arrested multiple times for drug possession, even as her music topped charts. In 1959, she was dying in a hospital bed from liver failure, handcuffed under police guard with just $750 in her bank account. Billie Holiday changed music forever, but the system she exposed made sure she never saw the rewards. And if Billie's fall was a slow unraveling, the next one came fast. Motown royalty erased from the spotlight and buried under welfare checks. Florence Ballard, the forgotten Supreme Florence Ballard, helped build one of the greatest girl groups of all time, the Supremes. Her voice was the backbone of their early hits, and her presence helped push the Motown sound into mainstream America. At the group's peak, she was earning over $100,000 a year, a staggering figure for a young black woman in the 1960s. But success came with silence. As Diana Ross rose to the spotlight, Ballard was pushed aside. Label executives favored Ross. In Florence, dealing with depression, alcoholism, and growing resentment, was eventually fired from the very group she founded. Her solo career flopped. Lawsuits drained her finances. By 1971, she was on welfare, trying to support 3 daughters with less than $400 a month. Her dream home was foreclosed, and her health deteriorated rapidly. In 1976, she died from a heart attack at just 32. There was barely enough money for a funeral. The world remembers the Supremes, but rarely remembers Florence. Her voice helped shape pop history, yet her legacy was buried under lawsuits, betrayal, and poverty. 10 stars, 10 cautionary tales. But it's not just about fame lost. It's about the brutal cost of chasing the spotlight. Fame promises everything: wealth, recognition, immortality. But as these stories prove, it rarely delivers forever. Behind every red carpet smile was someone fighting addiction, betrayal, bad contracts, or the crushing pressure to stay relevant. Some were exploited, others self-destructed, but all were swallowed by a system that only remembers you when you're useful. From Elvis to Billie Holiday, these weren't fringe artists, they were icons, and yet they died in silence, debt, or disgrace. Their legacies scrubbed clean for glossy tributes that skipped the painful parts. So next time you hear a classic song or see an old film, remember this: fame is loud, but the fall is often silent. And somewhere out there, another star may already be spiraling. If this video opened your eyes, hit like and share it, because these stories deserve to be heard, even if Hollywood tried to forget them.